I headed off to Strasbourg again this week. I think it's about my 240th visit since I got elected there 20 years ago. And I suppose in some ways I was full of anticipation because we knew the big vote was going to take place in the House of Commons on the new EU treaty that Boris had negotiated a few days before, and quite a lot of speculation that it might just get through Parliament. Now, I, of course, was hoping that it wouldn't, because it is not a great new deal, as Boris says. It's actually a very bad old treaty. Anyhow, we arrived in Strasbourg and we had a big debate on Tuesday morning, headed up by Jean-Claude Juncker, who, of course, has been the boss of the European Commission for the last 5 years, famous for his long lunches and louche lifestyle. Actually, on a personal level, I find him quite fun. You can like people that you disagree with. So it was Juncker's finale, his farewell. So I went to say goodbye to him. And he's always very civil, always very funny, always very charming. I said, so Jean-Claude, I said, no, nearly 20 years as Prime Minister of Luxembourg, 5 years as boss of the EU. Is this retirement? No, he said. I'm going to write a book about you, which I thought was really quite fun. So Juncker gone, but another personnel change that really matters, it's that man, Michel Barnier, our torturer over the course of the last 3.5 nearly years, the EU's chief negotiator, and his work was done because the treaty, the withdrawal treaty with the attached political declaration, that was Barnier's work. And Boris Johnson had agreed to it, just of course as Theresa May had agreed before. And that was to be it. However, now they've announced that Michel Barnier has been reappointed for the next phase of the negotiations. And I think one of the things people just don't quite get is when Boris says, please pass this for me, we'll get Brexit done, it's not true. All that does, that's the first stage of this over. The next part is the negotiation of a free trade agreement. How long will it last? Well, Michel Barnier, shortly after his reappointment, said the free trade talks will go on for 3 years or longer. That's right. We've just been through 3 years of agony. It's going to go on for 3 years or for longer. So you pays your money, you takes your choice. Either you believe Boris that this gets Brexit done, or you believe Michel Barnier that it will be at least another 3 years. So I spoke in the debate, and I did sort of tease them by saying, would this be the last time I'd speak to them in 20 years? Have a look.
Well, after 3 agonising years of negotiations, Michel Barnier gets Boris Johnson to sign us up to a brand new treaty, which guarantees 3 more years of agonising negotiations and, frankly, reduces the United Kingdom to the status of a colony of the European Union. And why is Boris doing it? He's doing it because he doesn't want extension. He's doing it because he knows that extension damages the Conservative Party in the polls. So he wants to bounce us in to this new treaty before we wake up. It's the same story every time. It's about the Tory party, not about the country. And what we need is to build a Leave alliance of those across the political spectrum to fight and win the next general election. The only way we can leave this place is with a clean break Brexit. Yeah. I would like to think, like Mr. Juncker, that this is my last speech here in 20 years, but somehow I've got the feeling, I'm sorry, I'd love it to be,
Would you let him finish?
You'd love it to be,
colleagues,
but I have
please.
a feeling we'll be back in November.
Yeah.
And here's the point. Actually, what was happening after that Thursday night meeting in Brussels, over the weekend and into this week, we saw Conservative members of Parliament, ERG members, people who are, I think, as Eurosceptic as I am, saying, yep, we are going to vote for it. Going to vote for it, despite the fact they hadn't even read the blooming thing, that few of them knew what the content was. But it was mainly being done about bringing the Conservative Party together. That classic moment that we see in British politics where party and career come above conviction and country. Well, dramatic moments, of course, that evening in the House of Commons, and I wonder whether it would pass. I wonder whether the final vote would take place on Wednesday or Thursday in Strasbourg, because it's the European Parliament in the end that has sign off on this, and Boris got a majority. He got a majority. The fourth time the withdrawal agreement was put to Parliament, he gets a majority. He gets it because, as I say, the ERG members vote for something that they don't understand or believe in, and cynically, quite a lot of Labour MPs, 19 of them, vote for it so that they can say to their Leave constituencies, particularly in the North and South Wales and places like that, look, I tried, I did my best. So that little moment of victory for Boris Johnson, but it didn't last long, because then there was a procedural motion about how long this should be scrutinised for, and on that the Prime Minister failed. You see, what he was trying to do was to bounce the country, bounce Parliament into accepting that he'd got a great victory. Sure, he got rid of the backstop. Yeah, okay, the commitment for the whole of GB to stay in the customs union was gone, but Northern Ireland had been sacrificed, along with our fishing industry and full regulatory alignment that would mean basically that everything from financial services to fisheries, they would make the laws for us for the next few years. And far from getting Brexit done, had it gone through, if it goes through, I think it's actually the death of Brexit, and I'll tell you why. Trapped for 3 years or longer inside a regime where they make the laws on everything, we have to accept it all, and we have no voice, no vote, no veto. I think in those circumstances the demands for a second referendum would get louder and louder, and they actually would have a point, wouldn't they? You know, why shouldn't we have a say over these things? Why should we have effectively taxation without representation? Well, it didn't get through. We didn't get the final vote in Strasbourg. We're now in limbo, or as Jacob Rees-Mogg calls it, purgatory. Now, this is a term, of course, that is very powerful in the Roman Catholic Church. Whether it was done to enrage the Protestant Unionists of the DUP even more, I don't know, because it had been a very tough week for them. Extraordinarily, even the Prime Minister didn't seem to have a grasp over the detail of what he'd agreed when he, falsely in the Commons, got an answer wrong. Because the truth of it is, under this deal, for somebody to export from Northern Ireland to the rest of the United Kingdom would mean filling in customs declaration forms. And Boris somehow seemed to have missed this. So now we have a pause. We have Jacob Rees-Mogg's purgatory. It's been announced that next week there'll be no parliamentary business on either a forthcoming general election or indeed on Brexit itself. There's going to be a pause. And I think into that space, I'm really hoping something useful might happen. I think that the withdrawal agreement and the attached political declaration, I think it's going to be a little bit like a nice piece of cheese. You've got it out of the fridge, you've put it on the table, it's really appetizing, it's new, it looks great. And then what happens is if it stays out of the fridge too long, it starts to smell. It starts to become inedible. And I think as much sunlight as we can shed on Boris's, I quote, Great New Deal, the more likelihood there is that people say, well, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that. And even the understanding that a transition period that can go on to the end of 2022 means that our estimated cost of leaving, which started off, if you remember, at 39 billion, now goes up to about 65 billion, and there'll be fact after fact that comes out. So I'm actually grateful. I genuinely think if this had passed, it would have been the death of Brexit, not the making of it. We've got a chance now to have a proper debate. And I also think the chances now of a general election happening are very limited indeed. Why? Well, because those joint geniuses, Cameron and Clegg, left us with this Fixed Term Parliaments Act. It needs 2/3 of the House of Commons to vote to have a general election, and Labour are in such a mess. Labour are doing so badly that Corbyn, at least Corbyn's party, can't possibly agree to an election in which lots of them would actually lose their seats. So I don't think that's going to happen. So it looks like the can has been kicked down the road in every sense. We await the announcement from the EU as to what extension we're going to be given. And I guess it's going to be until the end of January. Don't know the facts on that yet, but it'll be until the end of January. And I think, oddly, we're going to go on now, perhaps for some time, with a government that's in a minority position, that can't get any legislation through, a complete zombie parliament, confidence in this country in terms of our politicians, the whole system, pretty close to the verge of collapse, and yet we're just going to limp on. I don't think the general election now can come, probably until next spring. Now, of course, making these predictions is dangerous, although Adam Bolton on Sky News this week did call me Mystic Nigel, which I thought actually was quite a compliment. So I'm actually breathing a sigh of relief. I can't thank Sir Oliver Letwin for his amendment, or John Bercow for playing the games they played. I can't thank either of them. I can't bring myself to do it. But the fact we have now got some time to pause and reflect, to head in a new direction, I think that's very positive. I think it's very good. We've got a chance. I think at that general election, Boris can also drop the treaty, drop the withdrawal agreement, press the reset button, start again, try to build a Leave alliance, because that would win a general election. It would win it well, and we'd be there as the Brexit Party, helping, working with them, making that happen. We already know that the Liberal Democrats couldn't care less how you vote. You know, they want to revoke Article 50. The Labour Party now want a second referendum with a completely and utterly false choice. The Conservative Party want to bind us into something that will keep us trapped for years and would probably lead to a referendum in which people would vote to rejoin. The Brexit Party's position is the right one. It's quite simple, really. Either you stay or you leave, and I think we should leave. And many of you think we should leave. And if we can drag, kicking and screaming, the Conservative Prime Minister to that position, then we will properly get Brexit done.